Good morning, everyone. This is the first meeting of 2023 for the Board of Agriculture. We have some instructions since it's a hybrid meeting. I'm going to read from a script. As an attendee, your microphone will be automatically muted during the meeting unless you are providing testimony. For each agenda item you wish to testify on, please click the raise hand button found on your Zoom screen. Board staff will individually enable each testifier to unmute their microphone. When recognized by the chair, please unmute your microphone before speaking and mute your microphone after you finish speaking in order to prevent undue audio feedback. When testifying, you will be asked to identify yourself and the organization, if any, that you represent. Each testifier will be limited to 2 minutes of testimony per agenda item. When the chairperson asks for public testimony, you may indicate you want to testify by entering pound and then 9 on your phone's keypad. After entering pound and then 9, a voice prompt will let you know that the host of the meeting has been notified. When recognized by the chairperson, you may unmute yourself by pressing pound and then 6 on your phone. A voice prompt will let you know that you are unmuted. Once you are finished speaking, please enter pound and then 6 again to mute yourself. In the event that connectivity is lost and attempts to repair the connection exceed 30 minutes, the meeting will be terminated or continued on another date and time. Consult the webpage for updated information. For internet, telephone, and in-person access when testifying, you will be asked to identify yourself and the organization, if any, that you represent. Each testifier will be limited to 2 minutes of testimony per agenda item. I do have a little bit of personal request. This is my first Board of Ag meeting, so if you could be a little patient with me with the procedures and processes, but I have Ryan Yee here, who was counsel to the Board of Agriculture. Okay, so we'll begin the formal part. My name is Sharon Hurd, Chairperson, Department of Agriculture, and I am calling the meeting to order. Roll call of the members. Should we start with virtual? Okay, on the virtual, Diane Lay.
Present, and I'm alone.
You. I'm just going to go alphabetical. Randy Cabral.
Here.
Don Chang or designate Russell Suji. Not present. Fred Cowell, not present. Mary Alice Evans, designate for Chris Sariesto. Here. James Gomes.
Here.
Vince Mina.
Here and alone.
Thank you. And Young.
President alone.
Thank you.
Oh,
Dr.
me or
Anya?
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 Present and alone.
Okay. There is a quorum, and I need to identify counsel.
Brian Yee, Deputy Attorney General for the Department of Agriculture and Board of Agriculture.
Okay, we're going to do the approval of the minutes. Is there any member of the public who wishes to comment on the minutes?
I see no hands raised, Chair.
Okay. Do I have a motion? Oh, is there a discussion? Motion. Do I have a motion to approve the board minutes of November 29th, 2022?
So move.
Moved by James. By Mary Alice Evans. Minutes are approved. Any discussion?
No.
No.
So you can do it.
No discussion? Taking a vote. Should we do a roll call vote? Or just?
It's up to you.
Okay.
Roll call.
Okay, roll call vote for approval of minutes. Randy Cabral.
Aye.
Mary Alice Evans. Aye. James Gomes.
Aye.
Diane Lay.
Aye.
Okay, and Vincent Mina.
Aye.
And Young.
Yes.
And Dr. Anya.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. Minutes have been approved. Okay, going on to the agenda items. We have the communications from divisions and the administration. Now ask for the request.
Announce the first and then call it that.
Okay. So the first request, the first agenda item is a request for approval of one emergency loan to Maui Dragon Fruit Farm LLC. Presenting for. Yeah. That's fine. I did.
Good morning, Chair. My name is Wayne Takamine. I am the Business Loan Officer for the Agriculture Loan Division, and I will be presenting this Maui Dragon Fruit LLC request for a 100,000 emergency access tier loan. Maui Dragon Fruit LLC was established in 2009 as a Hawaii limited liability partnership with founding members Crystal Schmidt and Lawrence Schmidt. The farm does most of its operations on two parcels. The Lahaina parcel grows dragon fruit on 27.528 acres of fee simple land above Lahaina, producing dragon fruit, papaya, banana, and a variety of exotic tropical fruits. The Pukalani farm consists of 6.077 acres of fee simple land growing organic vegetables and leafy greens. The farm has experienced hardship from axis deer that have been entering the Pukalani farm and destroying the crops. Crystal Ying Schmidt was born in the People's Republic of China and earned a Bachelor of Science degree in Mechanical Engineering, a Master's of Business Administration degree, and is a certified public accountant. Lawrence Schmidt, Crystal's spouse, was born in New York and has a degree in mechanical engineering and attended the University of Hawaii for a master's degree in mechanical engineering. The farm was originated by Crystal's mother, who had a passion for farming. Soon, Crystal began selling produce to her co-workers at a Maui resort where she worked as an engineer. In 2009, Crystal and Lawrence established Maui Dragon Fruit Farm LLC. The couple now has been farming for 14 years. The Agriculture Loan Division has made several loans to Maui Dragon Fruit Farm LLC, and they have all been maintained by Crystal and Lawrence in good standings. The loan terms are as follows. This Class D 100,000 emergency access deer loan will have a term of 10 years and interest rate of 3% with monthly payments of $946 till maturity. This request will be secured by the following. A first position UCC blanket security interest and financing statement in accounts receivable, livestock, inventory, and farm equipment. Crystal Schmidt and Lawrence Schmidt have agreed to be guarantors for this request. They also will have limited liability insurance on the farm. The staff recommends approval for this request.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the request? Moved by Abby Cabral.
Second.
Second. By Mary Alice Evans. We are in discussion. Any comment? Will there be any testimony from the public?
Hi, Sharon. We actually do have a hand raised from the public. I don't know if it's in regards to this issue, but I'll bring them forward if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay. Michelle Melendez, I'm going to bring you forward if you can please introduce yourself and your organization.
Aloha. Aloha. Yeah, this is not in, can you hear me okay? You guys can hear me? Okay, mahalo. This is pertaining to request. I had my hand raised first and somehow it got off at the beginning of the meeting. But I would like to add on next month's agenda for the Department of Agriculture for you guys to have a form for Department of Agriculture on the Big Island, Hawaii County. Maui has it. And it's really surprising to me that the other islands don't have their own Department of Agriculture. I think it's really, really crucial for all the islands to have their own Department of Agriculture. And I do have farmers that can and are interested in creating this commission here on the Big Island to support our local farmers. We have, so many different climates and different farming here on the Big Island, and we need to have our own commission here. So I am requesting that you guys have on the next month's agenda to form a Department of Agriculture, and I will have people at that meeting if you do that. Maui has gotten a ton of grants for their Department of Agriculture and supporting their farmers, and we would like to have that opportunity as well. Now, I've been on island for 4 years, but I've had my family has been here for 25 years, and this is home. And to see us have our own Department of Agriculture supporting the INA locally with our local farmers is really, really crucial, in my opinion, especially at this time. So that is my request for this board to have on the agenda for next month to form a Department of Agriculture for Hawaii County.
Thank you, Michelle, for your comments. I've been advised that is actually a county function, and I don't think we can add that to the Board of Agriculture. And that's correct. But thank you for your comments.
If I could just comment, just to let you know, the various the county of Maui has created a Department of Agriculture within the county. So it is not a state agency. And the Department of Agriculture, the State Department of Agriculture, is unable to determine or decide what county organizations are created.
So who would I go to? Who would I go to for that?
You'd have to go to your respective county. So for Big Island, you'd have to go to Hawaii County and discuss with them.
Okay, and aloha, Vincent. It's good to see you.
Hi, Michelle. If I may, Chair, just one point for Michelle is it's a charter amendment that would be probably necessary for that, to bring that forward. That's how it was brought forward here on Maui. So that way to approach it on the Big Island, Michelle.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Mahalo.
Okay. Any other public testimony?
There are no, oh, sorry, there's one more hand raised. Eric, I'm gonna let you in if you can please state your name and or organization.
Hi, I'm Eric Tanoi. I was gonna be testifying on the loan for Puna Flower Power. Am I too soon, or did I jump
You're jumping the gun, Eric. You're next.
Okay, I'm sorry, my bad.
Okay, so any other public testimony on the matter of the loan to Maui Dragon Fruit Farm? No?
There are no other hand raised, Chair.
Okay, board members, are there any questions or comments?
I do, Chair.
Recognize-
One of the questions I have is this deer fence that they're going to erect is 8 foot. That's what they have here on the agenda.
What they have is
They have a 5 foot fence now.
they have a 5-foot fence, but
Well,
actually they've actually tried to extend the fence up. And these are actually the fences that are pounded into the ground,
Steel pins.
steel pins, and they trying to lash a little bit higher to make, because the deer are jumping over 5 feet.
Correct.
So they were trying to lash another post on top of that post and put up fencing. But
I've seen deer jump 10 foot fence.
Yeah,
They climb on top, they hit the fence and they rock like this and they go over.
it looks like this fence is very flimsy, but it needed something.
So the question I have.
Yeah.
We don't loan them the money.
Mhm.
But here's an issue. Do they have specs as far as how far a steel post is, the distance between each? Because if it's just flimsy, and if it's not a pipe lock wire kind of setup,
Mhm.
the deer hits it, it opens up, they go right through.
Yeah,
Because if they're going over the 5 foot, they're going through the 5 foot. So you're just gonna extend it, but you still have a weak corridor that's below the 5 foot section, so deer will still go through.
But-
They may not go over right now,
Mhm.
the next generation, they'll go over 8 foot. So I'm just thinking, is there a way that they're spacing, what, every 10 feet, every 12 feet, they have to have a steel pin? But I guess we are not in charge of the fence. they have somebody else that's a contractor that's gonna make it.
Yeah, we can expect it, and we're supposed to inspect, do a farm inspection 3 months after they get funded. So, we will do that, a follow-up, but from what I've seen, and they're just using their credit card to put up this temporary fence. It may help them in the short term, but it doesn't look like a long-term fix, and this is a long-term fix. In between their farm and the neighbor, there's maybe a space of about between 20 to 30 feet. So they haven't been able to clear up that land and then make the survey to go to the next adjacent farm. So they still have a bunch of stuff they have to do, make the fence the way they want to make it. But this will help 100,000, and then the rest they'll finance on their own.
Any further discussion from the board? Oh, see a hand.
Thank you, Chair. On a bigger picture, I just hope, as the new mayor here on Maui comes in, that we stop seeing deer as invasive and as a sustenance source, and be able to manage the population in a way that could feed the people here on the island, and then not have our farmers have to be getting loans for infrastructure like that. It's ridiculous. It just boggles my mind that we're already underwater as it is as farmers. I know several farmers experienced a lot of damage in the past rains. And so every time we plant a crop, we're giving this offering to the universe, and we don't know what we're going to get. And for the government not to be supportive of agriculture in this way is just unacceptable. And hopefully the new leadership, both in the Maui County and also the state, will start to see differently as to what that actually means.
I have different farmers on Maui, and I think some of the good news is that they have a ag park. I guess it's below Pukalani, and they're going to put up a fence on the whole ag park. So there's some progress going on that side. But as far as the individual farmers, some of them I talked to, they're interested in doing the deer loan. Some of them are just, they're downsizing maybe. So they want to cut their expenses. And some of them maybe just want to fence in the areas that are affected by the deer and not go throughout the whole perimeter. There's different issues with it. It's expensive, but the successful farmers do have fences keeping the deer out.
I have another comment.
Okay, go ahead.
So what you're saying is some farmers, well, first of all, when you're going where the county is doing the fence on the Kula Egg Park, I see that they're just on the front entrance, that they're going down on the highway, just cleaning, they're not erecting the fence. But we're talking farmers, but we also have a huge disconnect in the ranching communities, because for every 4-headed deer, I can raise 1 cow, okay? Last year, Olupalaku Ranch, well, I was just told just the other day, Maui Nui, Jake Hughes guys, took out 5,800 deer, only on Olupalaku. That's not Hamakua Ranch or anything. Here, they get pounded in state land, up in Polipoli area and so forth, they move. So now they come to big landowners. Now let me give you an example of big landowners. We're out in a herd and we break test these cows. That's supposed to be Hawaii and everything. We had more opens than we had conception. What we feel that's the reason is twofold. One, they're just eating the roughage, because whatever new shoots come up, the deer eats it. So the cows don't have enough nutrients, so they don't, they lost their calf because there's not enough forage for them, okay? So my point of all of this is we need to not only help farmers, the state can get in with its federal funds, is to help the larger ranchers to fence up their place. Calling them is fine, and giving them to selling the animal or whatever, that's all good. But you've got to put some kind of mechanism to take these numbers down. I remember when they released the deer on Maui, 1964. It was near the airport. They had them in a confined area. They had meetings at the time And in the meetings that they had, there were a lot of farmers that didn't care. There were a lot of ranchers that felt, yeah, it's fine. But no one knew epidemic proportion of what's going to happen in 30, 40 years. You know, when it's dry, I've seen this herd move maybe 1,500, 2,000 when it's dry as a group. When it's green, you hit them, you see them 60, 70, 100, not that fast, but they're there. But our Makai pastures below the highway above Wailea, there's no grass for them. We have weeds coming up now with this rain, but there's not enough nutrients because whatever good grass there is, it's gone. You know, and we've got people right here in this room. Randy Cabral comes from the ranch to come and hunt, so he's well aware of the deer populations that we have. But I'm not only all the large owners, you know, including Mahipono with their farming operation. Yeah. But it's kind of impossible for a rancher to afford these big high fences. We put in on our own, but we put in 1,200 acres, but it's over 700,000. How many people have that kind of assets? You know? But the deer needs to be dealt with. I mean, it's a good resource. Don't get me wrong, it's a good resource, and more people want to hunt deer than want to hunt pig. But on Maui, Molokai, Lanai, that's where the deer's at. Kauai, but Kauai's got a different kind of deer. But that's just my point. If we're looking at farmers, ranchers got to come, big and small, that needs to be at the plate, or we need to work collaboratively to see how we can get some federal money, you know, as well as state money.
I think one of the reports that I've heard is that, Mahipono is starting to put orchards in the under area, between Haile, Maui, and those used to be fallow sugarcane lands. And so when they clear out that, they had pigs and they had deer feeding on those fallow wild growing sugarcane, and now they're gone. So they're looking for other places. And farmers, they tell me that when they're driving on the highway, they can see the deer, they see the pig right over there.
If you did, run over. Mahipono planted a papaya orchard overnight. He came back the next day. Papaya's gone.
Just to remind the board, the matter on the agenda
Yeah.
is approval of a loan.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, James.
Sorry about that.
Not at all, not at all. Your suggestion for seeking federal funds is a good one. There's the Infrastructure Improvement and Jobs Act. And fencing is infrastructure for agriculture, so we will pursue that.
Great.
Okay. Board members, any other questions or comments? No.
Move to approve.
Move to approve from Mr. Gomes. What?
Do we have a motion already?
Oh, I'm sorry. Is there a motion to take vote? Motion to approve?
Well, I think there was,
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Gomes has made a motion to approve.
I think it was already previous to the discussion.
Okay, so now we call for the voice vote.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll do the roll call. And we'll start with Randy. Randy Cabral?
Aye.
Aye. And Russell Suji, did you tune in by any chance?
Yes, I'm here. I vote aye, Chair.
Aye. Mary Alice Evans? Aye. James Gomes?
Aye.
Aye. Diane Lay?
Aye.
Vince Mina?
Aye.
En Young?
Yes.
And Anya?
Aye.
The motion, there's unanimous approval for the request for the loan. Thank you.
Before we move on, I just want to make a comment on the deer. As you know, there's several bills to be managed to address some of the issues.
Can't hear you, Randy.
Yeah, there are several bills moving through the ledge to address the issue with deer, pigs. So you guys should pay attention to that and support those bills. If you get a chance, just want to bring it to everybody's attention.
Thank you.
Great. I think Randy needs to know that he has to speak over this direction down by Brian. Yeah, that's where the mic is. Yeah, hard to.
You don't have to look at the screen. Look at the.
Okay.
Got it.
Thank you, Vincent.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Wayne. Second matter on the agenda, request for approval of one loan to Puna Flower Power. Representing the staff is Deputy Morris Atta, also serving as administrator for the
morning, Chair, board members. I am bringing this matter to the board without a recommendation. I should note that to start. Initially, the request was presented to our division, and the loan officer had recommended denial based on materials presented at that time. Subsequent to that time, we have received additional information and comments from the applicant. And as the division administrator, I felt that the applicant should be given an opportunity to present his case for approval of the loan based on the most current information available. And that I thought it would be best presented to the board, since we already had on record a negative recommendation from our staff. And so I am going to open it up for discussion once the motion has been made, to allow the applicant the opportunity to present his case for approval.
Is there a motion to approve the request?
Second.
Moved by Randy Cabral, seconded by James Gomes. Is there public testimony for this?
I see two hands. I'm gonna let,
Okay, I think the first one was Gordon. You wanted Gordon to have some. Is Gordon out there?
yes.
Okay. Go ahead, Gordon.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity, Chairperson Hurd. And thank you, Acting Loan Administrator Otta, for the opportunity. Essentially, the difficulty we have had is that we made our loan application in October of 2022. And it wasn't until Mr. Otta on January 13th informed us that we had a negative recommendation from the loan officer. To this date, we have not had a face-to-face meeting with the loan officer, and unfortunately, apparently he's not available today. I did finally received a copy of his recommendation on the afternoon of the 24th of January, which is a week ago. And I drafted a detailed response to the loan administrator dated the 25th of January, along with attachments and all the reasons why the recommendation neglected to take into consideration several factors. Rather than going through the detail there, and I'm presuming the loan administrator has distributed the copy of our email, our letter and attachments to the members of the board, I'm going to try to summarize it as best as possible. First and foremost, one of the reasons for a recommended declination was a lack of adequate collateral. The loan officer apparently used the financial statement that we had provided him and concluded that the stated value in total assets was insufficient for the loan to value ratio, and he came up with 119%. The new information that I wanted to present to the loan officer was that we were faced with a unique situation. We were the recipients of both the loan from the Department of Agriculture and a grant from the County of Hawaii, $478,800 from the Department of Agriculture and a $500,000 grant from the County of Hawaii to build a nursery. And we used those funds to construct the nursery. Prior to last year, we were all of the view, including our accounting firm, that grant funds were non-taxable. But upon further research, they discovered that in the Tax Reduction Act of 2017, that there were a couple of minor changes, but with a major impact. And the major impact was that grant income from federal source or government sources were taxable. And I submitted the opinion of our accountants, which is Carbonaro and Associates, as well as their recommendations, as well as their adjusting journal entries. And so they recommended making an adjusting journal entry of $385,000 in depreciation in 2021. And this was due to the fact that although the tax law made it taxable, they also allowed single-use agricultural structures to be depreciated in 1 year. And this enabled us to shelter that grant income. And so we took advantage of that opportunity and we wrote down $385,000 in on the construction part of the nursery in 2021. And again, this is documented in the adjusting journals and entries from the accountants, as well as the letter that I sent to Mr. Atta. I pointed this out to our loan officer, and he asked for documentation for this. And at that time, I didn't have it available, but upon further research, I found the emails from our accounting firm, as well as their adjusting journal entries, and I have submitted it to Mr. Atta, and he can testify that it is in fact legitimate and documented. So the net effect of this write-down was to reduce our net assets by $385,000. If the tax law hadn't changed, the real value or the cost of the construction would have been somewhere in the vicinity. In fact, it will be exactly $926,794.32, which would make the loan to value ratio at 66%, giving you more than adequate coverage on the loan. Then there's another method that I refer to, and I call it the common sense method. And the common sense method is take a look at the assets that you have in front of you, and you know what you've got. I provided copies and pictures of the 3 greenhouses we've constructed, 2 of which are fully employed right now. The 3rd is constructed but not in use because we don't have the plants to put in it as yet. These greenhouses are 19,320 square feet. And we don't have to go into why they're 19,320 feet, but it's one of the state laws that was changed last year. But a greenhouse costs between $10 and $20 a square foot here in Hawaii, depending on the level of sophistication you want to engage in it. At a median value of $15, we have close to $900,000 in the assets alone, not including the plants and growing costs and other things that are capitalized. When you combine all of those, you have over $1 million worth of collateral for the loan, and the loan to value ratio goes down to about 60%. So that's the issue with the collateral. Additionally, when the loan officer listed the inventory, he listed about 80,000 plants. He neglected to mention the same report has another 64,000 plants in plug trays, which is very significant. So the total inventory of the nursery is 145,026 plants as of that date of the inventory. Are there any questions about the collateral value of the nursery?
Okay, Gordon, we're going to continue with public testimony and we will take questions later.
Okay, I wanted to address any issues before I moved on to the next 2 items, if it's all right with you, Chairperson.
Yeah, I'm sorry, just to let you know, it's just the other testimony from the public on this matter. And then we'll take questions from anyone from the public. I'm sorry, from the board members to any member of the public, just on this matter.
Yes, 2 more.
On the collateral value?
Oh, more on this item.
Brian, is questions appropriate now from the board or later?
Can I step in for a second? This is kind of an unusual situation because ordinarily staff would be presenting the request. in this situation, because of the specific circumstances, the applicant is actually presenting the request. He indicated to me that he had a three-part presentation to address the three issues that were raised by the loan officer. So the collateral issue was the first of three. I believe the second, involved the cash flow issue about the ability to service the loan. And the third was the status
Credit history.
on credit history, which wouldn't somewhat alluded to. But one thing I should note that I failed to mention in my introduction is that I was going to note that the submittal presentation had an error in it that should be noted and corrected if any action is taken on this. In that, as of January 3rd, the interest rate on this type of loan had changed, and it had been it needs to be adjusted to 6.5% rather than 3.75, 3.75%. And this is based in our statutory requirements for this type of loan and how the interest rate is determined. So if this matter proceeds, we should note that. I've discussed this with the applicant, and he understands that I was intending to bring this up. And he can correct me if I'm wrong, but he had indicated that he did not have a problem with it. So I should insert that here.
I have a quick question for you.
Sure.
Being that we've had new information that's coming,
Yes.
has staff or the loan division had a chance to vet all of this?
The information was presented to the loan officer, and it's unfortunate that he called in sick today, but the understanding is as of today that he continues to maintain his original recommendation for denial.
That's what I want.
Yeah, so that's his recommendation, and because that still exists, we felt it was best to give the applicant an opportunity to discuss the issues that had been specifically pointed out in the reasons for our loan officer's denial, which are those three points.
All right, so Gordon, I was going to identify you earlier, but if you could identify yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Gordon Inoue. I'm a member of the Puna Flower Power Co-op and have been elected as president of the co-op, and I've led the effort to establish and lead the co-op since its inception in 2019.
Okay, so we understand that there were three issues that you brought forth to
Yes.
the administrator, acting
Yes.
administrator, and so you've addressed one. Please
Yes.
address the other two, and then we'll move on with the question.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. The second one is a question regarding cash flow. I guess I'm a little stumped here in that the loan officer turned to historical cash flow of the co-op as being insufficient to cover the loan. Now, the reality is that we started planting plants in June of 2021. We got the funding from the Department of Agriculture in the fall of 2020. We got the County of Hawaii grant in January of 2021. We put the first greenhouse in operation in June of 2021. We have a 2-year crop. And so the first crop is expected to be yielding in full bloom by the summer of this year. And so our trend has been positive. Sales have gone incrementally, but it's relatively modest because, again, we're a startup. We don't have that many plants. Well, we have a good inventory of plants for the next couple of years, but not sufficient in mature stage to be able to meet cash flow requirements. So the argument that our historical cash flow is insufficient to support the loan is correct. And, but again, I pointed to everyone's information, this is a startup.
Okay.
Any questions regarding cash flow?
If you could just finish your
Oh,
whole
yeah.
testimony first.
Your number 3 point?
Number 3 point, very good. Yes, credit history. We have had a number of loans from the Department of Agriculture during our prior organizations. I personally was involved with Puna Orchids. It was an orchid nursery we established in 1984 with a novel idea of marketing blooming orchid plants. At that time, there was no market there was no one sold blooming orchid plants. And we came up with the novel idea of doing that. It was just the start of the FedEx timeframe. So we made mistakes. I mean, we grew that little business from nothing all the way up to $2 million a year in the year 2000. And again, we made mistakes along the way. When the recession came in 2008, in our effort to save our staff, we kept our staff engaged, but didn't continue to invest in plant replacement, so that when we recovered from the recession, we didn't have plants to sell that were marketable. And so the company sustained a downward spiral, and we shut up the operation in 2015. The loan was delinquent for a number of months, but was secured by the real property. And although the company was not operating, I personally went down the farm every week. I weed whacked and herbicided the facility to ensure that it looked presentable. And finally, in 2017, we were able to sell the property and retire the loan at Puna Orchids. On the floral resources side, Floral Resource Hawaii was one of the largest anthurium growers and marketers of tropical products in Hawaii, formed in 1976. And I believe we had several loans with the Department of Agriculture over time. We also suffered from the same challenges of the recession. And again, it's a management error, but we valued our employees and their employment and their families more than we place a high value on our people. And well, again, we tried to keep them employed through the recession. It was deeper, longer, steeper than most, but we actually survived it, and we were just approaching break even and turning to profitability again in 2014 when Hurricane Isel hammered us, literally speaking. We suffered hundreds of thousands of dollars of damage in that. The maximum loan we could get from the Department of Agriculture was $200,000, which we drew on and did the best we could. As we were recovering, our farms are in the ag park in Pahoa. And as you know, in 2016, we had a major flow that came to the north side of Pu'o'o that approached Pahoa town. And of course, our farms were right in the line of the flows. So what we did is we pulled all of our plants out and we moved them to another location. And of course, the lava flow stopped. So we took the plants and put them back there again. And all of this stunted the plants again. And we never truly recovered from that point on. We finally shuttered the company and filed for Chapter 7 liquidation. However, all of the loans to Floral Resources have been repaid by both my brother Vern and myself, with the exception of a balance of $39,000 on one of the loans, which I am personally making monthly payments on. And ever since that agreement was made with Mr. Matsukawa, I'm sure the department will attest to the fact that I have not missed a single payment since then. Yes, we've had delinquent loans that ran many months, but again, this is agriculture, and sometimes when you're a pioneer, these things occur, and we get the weather, and so that's our credit history. And again, I'm sorry we were delinquent, but again, I'm proud of the fact that we stood up and took care of the loans personally when the companies could not. So I'm open to questions or comments to anyone.
Mr. Inoue?
Yes.
To the board, we're going to continue with public testimony and then we'll have questions at the end. Okay,
Excuse me?
we're going to continue with the public testimony and take questions at the end.
Okay, thank you, Chairperson.
All right. Any other, yes?
Okay, I'm gonna let R. Galanti in.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, good morning, board. I'm Russell Galanti. I'm a extension agent with CETAR, CES, Hawaii Extension Service. I am the ornamental extension agent for floriculture, nursery, crops, and landscaping on Big Island and Oahu. And I also have statewide responsibilities. So what I do is I work extensively with the largest export orchid nurseries across the state. I want to express my support for Mr. Inoue's loan application. I also want to corroborate what I can corroborate from what he's discussing from a financial perspective. So I go a lot to Gordon's facilities. I go to PFP along with a few other individuals to help them with their operation. And I can say that he does have the greenhouse space at around $10 to $20 a square foot. And his plant material is going to be close to the valuation that he says it is. He's got very good plant material there. It's a very good operation as well. Aside from that, from a qualitative perspective, I think their production facility is an ideal model of what orchid growing should look like for export. I visit nearly every export nursery on Big Island, some on Oahu, and theirs is one of the best. It's clean. They sell very good, clean plants that are definitely able to be sold. They don't have any plant material that I would say couldn't be sold. They're also planning on using it as a training facility, which is really important because we need to help other growers learn how to grow as well as they're growing. And it would be a shame if they had to shutter this business. So I want to give my full support to Gordon and to PFP. From my professional perspective, they're a very good operation and they will use this money wisely.
Thank you, Mr. Galanti. Any other public testimony?
Yes, going to let Joanna in. Joanna, if you can please state your name and organization.
Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Joanna Blasey, and I am with the University of Hawaii Extension. Also, I'm the Assistant Extension Specialist Entomologist for Floriculture and Nursery, and I work a lot with Russell Galanti. So I agree with all of Russell Galanti's testimony. I've been to Puna Flower Power's facilities weekly for the last 5 months because we're collaborating on a research project together for new and innovative cultivation technology. And just to add on to what Russell was saying is, I think this nursery does adopt new and innovative cultivation resources, and they're very resourceful. From my perspective, they're set up to be really successful, and they're an example of orchid nurseries on this island for many other nurseries and what is possible for the younger generations. They have a very strong monitoring program, and they seek help if they ever need it. So they have great inventory, and as Russell said, all of that is exportable. So just to add on to his testimony.
Dr. Blasey, additional public testimony?
There are no additional hands raised, Chair.
There was Eric Tanoe earlier. Did Eric leave?
Oh, sorry. Eric.
Good morning, Chair Hurd and Deputy Chair Ata, members of the Board of Agriculture. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. Aloha kako. My name is Eric Tanoe. I'm this year's president of Hawaii Floriculture and Nursery Association. HEFNA is a statewide organization. We have a little over 300 members statewide, family farms all over the state, and primarily in cut flowers, cut foliage, blooming plants, and foliage plants. We sell our products in the state as well as export them domestically and internationally. HEFNA would like to support or show support for the loan application submitted by Puna Flower Power, I mean, sorry. We support the original intent of this project to recognize that it needs continued support to help it realize its purpose, to help our orchid growers who lost their farms during the 2018 Kapoho lava flow and get back on their feet. The flow caused $13.3 million in damages, and our orchid growers in this highly productive area called Kapoho took the brunt end of the losses. That production loss has not only impacted the revenue generated by Hawaii orchid growers, but the ability to fill that high demand that the industry has been creating over the last 15 years with our marketing. That demand will continue, we feel strongly, because of the unprecedented scale of our millennial and Gen Z consumer base that is coming upon us now. With that, I'll stop and happy to answer any questions, but we appreciate your consideration with this loan that will really help PFP continue what they need to do to get to cash flow position. Thank you very much.
No way. Any other public testimony?
There are no additional hands raised.
Okay. So now we open it to questions from the board. Is there a hand? Oh, Vincent Mina.
Thank you, Chair. Gordon, thank you very much for all your input there. You know, as the saying goes, you want to make $1 million at farming, start with 2. In your paperwork here, it speaks about interest. Currently, interest only monthly payments is $4,211. Am I reading that correctly?
I don't believe so.
Chair, Brian, do you see that in the paperwork? Under other state agricultural loans on page 2.
Is this on the presentation from the loan officer?
Yes. Page 2, it says other state agricultural loans approved 8/12/2020, $479,870 balance with $479,870. And it says currently interest only monthly.
Yes, that is incorrect.
And the amount of loan that you're looking for is 138,000?
Yes, sir.
And Morris, like you had spoken about the interest, my question was, the Dragon Farm just got approved a $100,000 loan for 3%, but you're saying this particular type of loan is the reason why it's 6.7, you said?
6.5, yes.
6.5?
Based on the class.
Class of loan? I see.
Because just for your information, the prior loan was an emergency loan, and it falls under a different program.
I see. Falls under a different program. Okay. And then the only other concern, of course, is the lava. Gordon, is there any kind of, I mean, what do you have? They won't give insurance for that kind of area, right?
I think we're in a much safer zone now. One of the things I submitted was the location of where the nursery is located now. And it's very near Keau, quite a ways from Kapoho.
Right on. Okay. Well, thank you very much. And I appreciate your stick-to-itiveness and going back in there and rolling up your sleeves and doing what you got to do.
Thank you very much. The interest only payment is approximately $1,500 a month right now. And we've been making those payments since I think November 1st.
Okay, so Chair, could you please figure out why that's $4,211 shown on this report here?
I believe that's the amount that we'll be paying January 1st, 2024, when we make full amortizing payments. I believe, but I'd have to go check that myself.
Okay.
Can I interject for a second? We do have to recognize the fact that if this moves forward, the interest rate is going to be different because the numbers that you're referencing now are based on the original 3.75% loan amount, loan rate, and the payments will have to be recalculated and adjusted to reflect the 6.5% rate. And yeah, I believe the applicant is aware of that, and we had discussed that he's still. It's my understanding that he still wants to proceed, given the fact that even with the fact that we have to make this adjustment on interest rate.
Yeah, the concern too, Chair, if I may, that I have is understanding these loans, because I know we personally on our farm have an FSA loan that if we were to pay it off, it's $288,000 right now. If we were to pay it off right today, we would have saved $200,000 in interest. And it's like, you hear these loans are low percent interest rates, but then, when it's the way they have it figured out, it's like, God, just keeps you underwater, it seems like.
That's several questions. Okay.
Next is Anya. After that will be Russell Suji, followed by N Young, followed by James Gomes. But Anya, you have the floor.
Gordon, thank you very much for providing us with additional information. And Chair, can I suggest that we defer this until next meeting so the loan officer can review documents again and take the new information under consideration?
I will put that to the administrator. I know the reason it's on the agenda today is the urgency of the request.
Yes, just kind of referring back to Member Gomes's question about whether or not the loan officer had an opportunity to look at review the updated documentation. The information was forwarded to him, and he still, it's my understanding that he hasn't changed his position on it. With the additional information. It's unfortunate that he's not here to be able to explain that, and I can't, I don't think I can provide any explanation for that. The reason for a delay, I would not recommend the delay, is because the reason why this matter was brought before the board, and the matter that it was of, I guess, primary concern of the applicant was the timing of the funding needed to sustain his operations. That I should let the applicant speak for himself about the reasons for the urgency. But my understanding was that if it were delayed beyond this month's board meeting, that they would suffer serious risk of not being able to sustain the operations.
Thank you, Mr. Atta. The request, as I say, was drafted and drafted in October with the anticipation that we would be in dire circumstances by the first of the year. And because of the delays, I've been personally funding the operations, payroll and out-of-pocket expenses on a day-to-day basis. In fact, the loan officer cites this as a reason for inadequate cash flow in his recommendation to deny the request. And while I would love to give the loan officer a full opportunity to address some of these issues, I have to tell you that I wrote the letter to Mr. I got the response. I got a copy of his recommendation on Tuesday. By noon on Wednesday, I responded in detail to Mr. Atta. Mr. Atta said, "Can I share this with the loan officer?" I said, "By all means. I want him to be able to understand it." And it's my understanding that despite that, he declined to change his recommendation. So I don't know if there's anything that I can say further to convince him that it was an oversight. And again, it seems very straightforward, as I say, and I produced the financial statements and everything else that he relied upon to explain why the stated assets are undervaluing the nursery. But you know, I know even if this loan is approved today, I know it takes time to do the documentation and everything else. And you know, I think we can. I know we can take care of that. But deferring it for another month, I think I can't. I don't know. I don't know if we can. I don't know if I can continue to cover that time frame personally.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Inoue.
Yes.
Second question was Russell Suji, representing DLNR.
Thank you, Chair. A couple questions, and I'll just state them, and Mr. Inoue can respond. As to the collateral, the sufficiency of the collateral issue, on the staff write-up, if I'm reading it correctly, it appears that the assets that you have proposed to be collateral for this proposed loan with DOA right now has already been secured by shipment, first lien or something, because it appears that there's a write-up that indicates if there's a breach on the, I guess, your land agreement with shipment, that it'll take over the assets, including your equipment and personal property remaining on that property. The second issue is your statement about the depreciation issue, which I understand, is more like a paper loss kind of thing and not a cash flow thing. Was that information shared with the two banks that you had previously sought applications with? I think you had the Bank of Hawaii and First Hawaiian, and what was their responses to that? Thank you.
I'll address myself to the second issue first. The answer is no, I did not share that because that question never came up. A condition of our loan is 2 declination letters, and I was able to obtain that, and so I pursued our Department of Agriculture loan as our primary source. Now, on the other issue regarding shipment, as the shipment lease doesn't differ from the DLNR leases that you write also, where in the event of default, I think you try and secure as much of the assets as possible. And the shipment lease is no different than that. But the secured UCC filing secures the assets of the company, of the co-op, to the Department of Agriculture, to my understanding. And again, I'm not the lawyer, but that's my understanding, that they have a UCC filing with the security interest in crops, accounts receivable, greenhouses, and farm equipment.
Okay, Mr. Tucci, can we move on to the next board member's question?
Yes.
Russell, was that
Yes.
okay, thank you. Our next question, board member N. Young, followed by board member James Gomes.
Thank you, Gordon, for coming presenting to us, and thanks, Morris, for putting this in front of us. I hope that I do want to stick to a process, as far as these are concerned. I'm sure there are other denials that may be of interest to the board. So I understand this is kind of an emergency situation, but as we move forward, like to think about how how we be fair about those who may be denied by staff, but may have a chance. There may be other considerations that the board might want to take a look at. Okay, Gordon, actually from a mission of the Department of Ag standpoint, I'm okay with the 60% LTV. As far as collateralization goes, if you do default and DOA seizes the assets, what are we going to do with it anyway? We're not going to farm or anything like that. We probably won't collect on, the full amount on any of the assets. So that part doesn't bother me. The credit, we know that you folks are, connected on a big island, and that your word is pretty much gold, that you back it up. So the prior credit history doesn't bother me either. And I think that, again, from a mission standpoint, we should be trying to fund some of the more difficult loans, right? We're kind of a lender of last resort to some extent. My question is, on the CTAR side, they say you have a lot of clean, saleable plant material. But what is kind of the prognosis for the saleability of that of that material? The write-up talks a little bit about big box stores and that kind of thing, but are you forward contracted? Are there sales agreements in place? And what is the likelihood that your cash flow targets or your revenue targets are going to hit based on your estimation and kind of knowledge of the market?
Thank you, Siang. With the few customers we have today, we're just touching or reconnecting with customers that we dealt with in our past entities. And as soon as I contacted them, almost without any hesitation, they would say, ship me a box. And of course, they've been very happy with it too. The baseline of this company will be what I call a mom and pop nursery. It's the Poipu orchids, the orchid alleys, fragrant orchids. It's a orchid nurseries that have a compact nursery with a loyal clientele that can call upon us week after week after week, get one case, two cases, something along that line. And those are the customers we want to serve day in and day out. We had a unique way of serving these customers. Each of these customers had unique requirements in terms of how tall, how many leaves, how many buds, how many, they all had very specific wants. And so what we used to do, and we'll continue to do, is assign a customer to a particular employee to harvest their order, such that whenever the customer received their order, it was absolutely perfect as far as they were concerned. And that built a lot of loyalty on. Forward contracts, never heard of it. I don't think it exists in our business anyway, either in the cut flower side or in the potted plant side. The big box stores, I look at being the outlet where you have a surge in terms of peaking markets and everything else. And for blooming orchid plants, it is the fall period between August through November, where everything blooms. And we can continue to serve our customers that we serve every week, but we need some place to go, in terms of large numbers. And that's where the mass market occurs. We can't build a company on the mass market because it's very, very fickle. They want you today, but it's Valentine's Day. Okay, we want some now. We want lots now, but we'll call you next Mother's Day. We can't live with a customer base like that. And so, as I say, our customer base is being built on the mom and pop nurseries going forward. And we've been successful at it before. I mentioned we were at $2 million a year. I don't think we'll get there. We want to get to $1 million plus. And I think we can operate a very, very good cooperative at that level. As the cooperative grows, we'll find more and more of these customers, primarily in areas which are good hosts for our orchid plants. I hope I've answered your question, Ms. Young.
Okay, move on. Yes, okay. Board Member James Gomes and then Diane Lake.
There was a loan request that was approved 8/12/20, $479,870. And monthly and interest only will begin pretty much 2 years later, 11/1/22, over 2 years. And so you got the money, you didn't have to pay anything, you know. Why that is, I guess the loan officer agreed. And now there's a loan request for 138,000, which if I take that into consideration, it's 517,899. Both loans is $5,718.49, plus your overhead that you have monthly. And apparently, I'm reading this, and I might be wrong, but back in 2017, August, both loans were cash settled after liquidation of company's fee simple real estate assets. The efficiency balance is waived by Scott Enright, former chairperson. So I think the department has reached out many times and tried to help you along. And I don't doubt all of the support that you have from fellow flower growers or people in your industry or the stakeholders who get 100% behind you. But when I see your balance sheet of your accounts receivable, $7,000, I have a question on that, you know? And then initially you wanted to build more than, I think it was 8 greenhouses, but apparently I think you're up to 3. So a question I have with that is all of your plants in a greenhouse that you grow, 1, 2, do you plant any of the plants outside of the greenhouse? And are they subject to the elements of the volcano, which will hinder your production?
Thank you. First of all, the plan for 8 greenhouses was based upon a, let's see, I'm trying to remember, 2019 federal disaster program, where the federal government allocated $479 million to those states affected by hurricane, rainstorms, and volcanic eruptions. And we made an application to the Economic Development Agency, and it was accepted, but they wanted match funding from local sources. And we applied for the Department of Ag loan, which counted. And then we also got the federal grant, county grant, excuse me. And then we went back to the EDA with that funding, which they considered applicable. Unfortunately, in the interim period, all of the funds were otherwise allocated or dispersed. And so obviously that source dried up. Additionally, we worked very closely with the County of Hawaii and the Build Back Better grant, and attempted to realize the overall master plan that we had described with 8 greenhouses on it. And we worked very hard on that. Unfortunately, the County of Hawaii was not selected as a awardee of that grant. And so, as I say, we have to kind of retrench back to our 3 greenhouses. Of the greenhouses, 2 of the 3 are fully utilized at the present time. And our loan request calls for $50,000 to buy additional plants, which we need to get as soon as possible to keep our pipeline going for 24, 25 sales down the road. Now, the deficiency, and again, I do not recall the total deficiency, but it was very modest. Okay, it goes back to 2017. I know when we did the closing, I personally paid for the closing costs, and because of that, the department, I think there was a modest deficiency. I can't tell you how much it was. Now, looking at the accounts receivable today, again, I have to go back and say, look, we're a startup. We only have a limited number of plants. Our plants won't be coming online till mid-year of this year. And so again, we're just selling a limited number of plants, 4 or 5 cases a week. So, the accounts receivable of $7,000 doesn't look very impressive, but that's all we got right now. That's all the plants that are available for sale. Everything we are selling has been sold. One of the loan officer's comment was that, and again, unfortunately, a loan officer made a visit to the nursery unaccompanied and unannounced. He mentioned that there are only 10 blooming plants that he saw in the nursery. Well, when you're a blooming plant nursery, what you're doing is you're selling mature buds with maybe one blossom open. So if you see a lot of blooming plants in the nursery, you're not doing your job. When you see 10 plants blooming, you've done your job. Everything that's marketable has been sold and shipped. So, that's how I can comment about state of the nursery and our accounts receivable. And I hope I've answered your question adequately, sir.
Yeah,
It's Dan Lay, and go ahead, Dan.
Thank you, Chair. And I want to acknowledge board members for their questions and covering the basis of this loan request. I just like to say that, I also want to express appreciation to the members of the Puna Flower Power Cooperative. They've been really helpful, and I've gone out twice to the nursery, answering questions, sharing details of their business in multiple emails, multiple photos. I do want to say that, the members do have, and the people that are affiliated with them and their workers, because that's the other component, is their employees. That is a concern. They do have decades of experience in production, in the business of growing orchids, of marketing them, and really being the innovators and leaders in building this industry that so many people ride on the heels of afterwards. But unfortunately, they've had, as Mr. Inouye indicated, they've had to recover from some significant disasters. Hurricane Azelle went right through, one of the operations, having to move plants because a lava flow was, headed directly towards their operations. Plants don't necessarily get up and, get in the car and, relocate easily. So, that type of thing. And then the members of the co-op that completely lost their operations in Kapoho due to the eruption. Those are really significant losses that are really difficult for businesses to sustain, whether there is, federal, state, and county safety nets. They don't make anybody whole. And so I think it's really critical that, that we need to reach out and support these businesses as they are in the process of recovering. I was a recovery manager from Kilauea in 2018, in the middle of the year it started. And we told people it's gonna be 4, 5, 6, 10 years before you're recovered. And you're never really going to be the same. And Mr. Inouye has indicated that their business, is shifting. And they're the type of people, the type of leaders that can react and shift. But I think that, we need to support this type of business. They are, they've taken risks in the past to build businesses, to build new markets, to build new product. They're important to maintain the presence and the ability to meet demand for Hawaii products. And it's not just about their companies, it's about other companies as well. Hawaii needs to maintain It's high quality, the quantity needs to maintain its foothold. And we step back from that because of these disasters, but we can step forward and replace that. Going out to their operation, I don't know if you all saw the pictures of their operation and the map. They have relocated out of the high-risk lava zones. They're about, I would say, 15 miles from Kapoho now. They've chosen to relocate to get out of those high-risk areas. They have, as CTAR staff explained, they've got clean, brand new greenhouses, high quality. The plant material looks consistent. It's young plant material, but it's coming along, and they're selling product as spikes come up or blooms. They are, they're moving forward. They're moving forward to stability. And the concept that of bringing along other growers through a training program in the future is really critical. I'll just say it, some of the players in the co-op are, they're not spring chickens anymore. They've been doing this for decades. And so they're willing and able to, look forward to how can we bring other people along in the industry and grow this industry and grow the strength of it. And we need to do that for Hawaii overall. And I'll just say finally, and I think that they're the capable ones to do that. They've got the experience. They're willing to continue to learn, continue to evolve, and they're willing to share that with younger generations, and that's important. And as the lender of last resort, I think the department has a responsibility to step up to the plate and make this situation whole. They've been faced with the challenges that we all are facing, of rising costs, unplanned for events, both tax-wise as well as, hope for grants and opportunities to support their operations. So I would just ask that the board members consider that as a part of our mission and fiduciary responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Diane Lay. On to Randy Cabral.
I have a couple comments. I was able to visit with Gordon and Slates, and I can verify the assets are there. The greenhouses are in perfect shape. Inventory is there. They run a first-class operation. There's no question in my mind. Both Gordon and Nelson now are both honorable, honest, hardworking individuals. And I believe they'll make this work if they get the loan. You're all familiar with Game of Thrones, where they say the Lannisters always pay their debt. Well, I believe Gordon will pay his debt, and Nelson will pay their debt. So I'm certainly will give it up on this particular loan.
Thank you for that comment. Any other board member comments, questions? Okay, so, sorry.
I just had a question, and maybe I know the staff officer is not present, but maybe Mr. Noy can answer. Because I have a concern about the cash flow issue, and whether you're able to sustain the payments on such a loan. Are you willing to submit a personal guarantee on these loans? Or is
this is a cooperative, as you know. You elect officers annually, and I don't think it'd be appropriate for me to give a personal guarantee. Now, to answer your question about the cash flow, the assumptions for the cash flow were listed in the projections. When we did the initial projections, we talked about $4.50 a plant, but the market today supports $6 a plant very, very readily. And we see it going upwards also, which is fortunate because all of our costs have gone up significantly also. I have very little doubt in my mind that we'll be able to generate the sales to support the cash flow.
But you indicated you are covering operating expenses currently and payroll out of your own personal fund. Is that right?
That is true. I'm doing that because I believe in the cooperative and the effort and the mission of the cooperative.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if there are no further questions from the board members.
Yeah, that's the move on to the second to accept the addition to the motion to accept the 6.5%.
So I've been advised to ask for a motion to accept the revised application to reflect 6.5% interest rate.
So moved.
James, and seconded by Randy. And roll call. Randy Cabral.
Aye.
Russell Suji.
This is, Chair, is this to amend the application?
Right, to add the
Yeah,
6.5.
yeah, yes, aye.
Okay, thank you. Mary Alice Evans. Aye. James Gold.
Aye.
Diane Blay.
Aye.
Vincent Mina.
Aye.
Enya.
Yes.
Anya.
Aye.
Okay. The motion to revise the application to include the 6.5% is accepted. Do we move on to vote? Okay, so now we'll do a vote on the request for the loan. Again, a roll call. Randy Cabral.
Aye.
Russell Suji.
No,
No.
sorry, apologize.
Aye. James Gomes.
I'm going to vote aye with reservations based on PFP's historical performance, the site visit, and the economic conditions. Applicant projections appear optimistic. But I'm voting with reservations.
And Diane Lay.
Aye.
Vincent Mina.
Aye.
N Young.
Yes.
Dr. Anya.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion is to accept as carried. Oh, my vote, aye. Yes. So the motion is passed. The motion is passed. Thank you. We're going to take a break for 5 minutes. Thank you. Well, we reconvene at 11:40.
Ms. Chairperson,
Yes.
is my further attendance necessary, or are we?
No, you can go, Gordon.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, members of the board. We appreciate your support. Mahalo.
Thank you.
Chair, can you hear me? Chair, can you hear me?
No, this is open to the public, so you can say anything you want. So we're not on the records, but it is open to the public.
Yes, Chair, I will need to step away for the next 15 minutes and I'll be back after that.
Okay, take care.
Thanks.
Okay, we're back. The
Russell
Board of
and
Ag-
Vincent are
Russell and
still-
Vincent. We have to wait for the-
Looks like you can.
Okay, the Board of Agriculture meeting is back in session. What we're going to do now is move on to the second item on the agenda, which is the communication from divisions and administration. The division is the Agricultural Resource Management Division. We have 2 items on the agenda.
Good morning, Chair, board members. My name is Linda Marai. I'm a property manager with the Agricultural Resource Management Division. And our first request today is for approval of a rental offset for general lease number 3144. The lessee is Forrest Callahan and Tiffany Parker. The land is on Honolulu on the island of Hawaii. With some background, in 2008, Governor's executive order transferred the land parcel to the Department of Agriculture for management purposes. The Ag Resource Management Division, excuse me, requested and received board approval for the disposition of the property by way of sealed bids. And the property was awarded to the successful bidder, Forrest Callahan and Tiffany Parker. A 35-year lease was issued. The lessee submitted expense receipts for equipment and services rendered to ready the land for planting of crops according to their plan of utilization and development and conservation plan. In addition to clearing the premises of large overgrown trees and other invasive plants, they removed numerous abandoned and derelict vehicles and equipment. They are continuing to work with local law enforcement, DLNR, Land Division, and DoCare to remove homeless encampments at which various illegal activities are being conducted. The work to ready the premises for planting is still ongoing. Pursuant to 158(2)(a)(3) Hawaii Administrative Rules and the lease, the board may permit the lessee to offset the cost of land clearance and improvements against not more than 2 years of base annual rent. Lessee is requesting a rental offset of 2 years of base annual lease rent totaling $10,002, although their costs exceed this amount thus far. Recommendation that the Board of Agriculture approve the lessee's request for a rental offset of up to 2 years of base annual rent from June 1st, 2022 through May 31st, 2024. Thank you.
Do we have a motion to approve the request? So moved. Mary Ann?
Second.
Second.
Mr. Gomes? Okay, is there any public testimony on this matter?
There are no hands raised, Chair.
Okay. Board members, any questions or comments? Mary Alice?
Linda, I know that the land was transferred to the management POA in 2008, and the sealed bids process was concluded in 2021.
Mary Alice, I can't understand what you're saying, dear. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, can I speak a little louder? Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. What kind of impediments did the department encounter in getting this land leased out?
Thank you for that question, Mary Alice. You know, I've been with the department now for almost 10 years, and I can only speak for my time during which I've been here. But you know, staffing shortage has always been an issue with our department, and certainly, I'm quite certain that that is one of the main issues. We had people before, my supervisor previously was handling not only land, but also irrigation. And so now when they brought me on board, and when I started going to Hawaii to do site visits, that's when it came to my attention that there were these lands that were not leased yet. So I did make it my priority to lease out these lands. And so here we are. Thank you.
Sure, I'm not necessarily in this, but if we could maybe at the next meeting have an idea of how many parcels in the work that you guys need to do, so
Yeah.
we have an idea of what's out there.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
Was Randy's request is how many parcels are like this? Is that what I heard?
Are still vacant, I believe.
Yeah, I want to know, Vince, what's vacant out there still?
Uh-huh. Thank you, Randy.
Okay, and a question from Mr. Gomes.
So, prior to 2002, what was the TMK under? Was it on
Oh,
DLNR or?
I'm sorry, 2008. I know you see the 2002 up there. That's a typo, but
So what was it before 2008?
it was DLNR land that came over per Act 90, and it was vacant.
So now from there, 2008, so between 2008 to 2021, yeah, no one was occupying the land. And then you made it where you went over and you looked at this land that's vacant, but you wanted to put somebody there.
Absolutely, that's the best way
So
to
now-
manage it.
Do you have pictures before and after showing the encampments of the homeless, showing all of these derelict cars? So I can get a vision of how bad it is. We're only talking 6 acres. We're not talking 600 acres.
Right.
So do we have pictures of that nature?
I don't have the encampments because I didn't want to get that close. I do have photos of the derelict cars. I've seen them myself.
And are you getting receipts for the expenses for them? I mean, some kind of justification,
Oh,
so you
yes.
can justify
Oh,
they
yeah.
want two
Right.
years of free rent.
Absolutely.
So in your
This
opinion, that's just-
lessee purchased his own equipment, heavy equipment, so he could do some of the work himself. But it is a lot of work.
okay, so my last
Yes.
question is, in this 6 acres, has it been fenced? Does it have water? Does it all the infrastructure in there already, or he's still working toward that?
Still working.
Because
There
you
is
take out
water.
people, guys are still gonna come back and dump a car there.
Oh, yeah,
Dump a
right.
truck.
Well, the the lessee lives adjacent to the vacant parcel. And so he's right there, and can, visually see what's going on if they do their rounds. And they have cut inner roads, interior roads, so that they can more easily inspect it.
Thank you. My last,
Yeah.
sorry, I get questions popping up. It's on Randy's deal. Besides vacant property, all vacant property on all islands, if we can get a list, that's, we can put people on there. Do you have a list of parcels of that nature?
Under Department of Agriculture
Yes.
Management, yes,
So can we get a list of that?
yes.
And so-called, when you come back on other items, if we can show me a picture. I'm good with pictures rather than I'm looking at it and interpreting that. Oh, yeah, okay. What, we got one car, we got 500 cars.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Vincent Mina.
Thank you, Chair. So Linda, they say planting of crops. Are they looking to do tree crops or looking to do ground crops, veg crops? Is there any?
Their plan of utilization is some fruit trees and some crops as well. But they have a lot of work still ahead of them.
No, I understand, right. And like, I didn't hear the answer to Jimmy's question about the fencing. Are they fencing it off, or is it just that because they live across the street, they're able to keep an eye on the property?
They intend to fence the perimeter of the property that they'll be using. Excuse me, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Yes, so fencing is in the plan. Yes, it is part of the lease requirement to fence their land.
So what is the biggest challenges for farmers in that area? I'm not familiar with farming in that area.
I would say the biggest challenge in the Hanapepe Valley area is the homeless, the homeless, and the illegal activity that comes along with the homeless. That is their major, I would say.
And, you know, this is not part of this request, but, you know, it is part of it in the bigger picture of things. It would be really great, wouldn't it, if we were headed into a direction to where we took our homeless and we took the people coming out of the military on PTSD who could actually lead and manage and have farms to where people can get integrated back into society on a farm and have psychiatric care there if they get done working on the farm, or you know what I mean? And we're not even heading in this direction, unfortunately. And this is the outcome of these vacant lands and these, it's sad, it's just a sad commentary. So just wanted to put that in there as a note for public record, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Anya, do you have your hand up?
Yes, I do, Chair. I just wanted to inform you that I'm back in attendance, and due to unusual circumstances, I would like to ask for your permission to keep my camera off for duration of a meeting.
Okay. So granted.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board members?
Yeah, I'm not alone anymore, Chair. I'm sorry.
Oh, I think it's his graduate.
From his girlfriend, maybe from his girlfriend.
I know. So with no further questions, can we move to the vote? Okay. Randy Cabral. Aye. Russell Shuji.
Aye.
Mary Alice Evans. Aye. James Gold.
Aye.
Diane Lay.
Aye.
Thank you. Vincent Mina.
Aye.
En Young.
Yes.
Anya.
Aye.
Okay. The matter is passed.
Thank you.
Okay. The next is a list for you as well.
Randy.
Oh, Randy's coming in from Zoom.
Yes.
Item number 2. Is she there?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning, Chair and members of the board. I am Brandy Ayo, Property Manager with the Agricultural Management Resource Management Division on the Big Island. The submittal is a request for approval to sublease between the Hamakua Agricultural Co-op, lessee sublessor, and Lessee Secona sublessee for general lease number S5553 TMK 3-4-3 -003-003 lot 27 in Pauwilo, Island of Hawaii. Lessee Secona is an original member of the Hamakua Agricultural Cooperative since June of 1998. He grew up in Tonga, where he learned Tongan farming techniques working alongside his father. As a sole proprietor, he currently subleases Lot 3 under General Lease 5553, consisting of 5.55 acres located in Pauwilo. Mr. Secona has also been unofficially farming on Lot 27 under General Lease 5553. He utilizes both properties to cultivate popular Polynesian and Pacific Island staples, such as Tongan yams, tapioca, taro, white pineapple, and banana. A recent review of our records indicated that a sublease for Lot 27 needed to be formalized, which this submittal accomplishes. This request has no financial implications to the HDOA, as it is strictly an approval for a sublease. The master lessee, Hamakua Agricultural Cooperative, is responsible for the remittance to the HDOA. Lessee Secona is a sublessee in good standing. He qualifies as a bona fide farmer with more than 2 years of full-time farming experience and meets the application and eligibility requirements. The staff recommends that the Board of Agriculture approve the sublease between the Hamakua Agricultural Cooperative, lessee sublessor, and Lessee Secona sublessee for Lot 27 in Pauwilo under General Lease S5553 through the expiration date of June 29th, 2033. Thank you.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the request?
So moved.
That was Mr. James Gomes. Any second?
Second,
That would be.
Ms.
okay,
Diane.
Thank you. So we are in discussion. Any public testimony?
There are no hands raised, Chair.
Thank you. Board members, any questions or concerns?
I have a question, Chair.
Okay.
It's kind of a general question regarding leases. I'm assuming that BOA requires liability insurance from these lessees holding BOA as a co-insured. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
In the case of this co-op here, what happens? Do you still get liability insurance as co-insured?
Okay, I have a hard time hearing. If we still have liability insurance for the properties?
Yeah, that BOA
Yes,
covered.
yes.
Case like this now, where it says he was farming unofficially on lot 27. How is that covered if he's farming unofficially? So that means he doesn't have any liability insurance.
You know, that is a good question. I would have to check with the co-op with regards to that, to the liability insurance, because the co-op is who leases the property under us and they sublease it to him. So I would have to check on that question.
Okay, it could be important. Something should happen and he's unofficially using it, then it could come back to the state as far as liability.
Okay.
Probably the co-op has liability insurance, though.
Yes, they do.
Is that Russell?
Yes, I was just making a comment. I think the co-op probably has insurance as DOA requires it.
Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments from the board? What? Oh, Mr. Mina.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Brandy, do you know what the status is regarding the roads for the co-op? I know in the past it's been pretty bad, you know, and then the responsibility of the care, I think, falls on the co-op. Is that correct?
I believe so. In some areas, I recently did some inspections during the summertime, and in some of the areas, the roads are a little, it could be, you know, a little hard to go through, but only in some of the areas.
Okay. And this is 5.4 acres. Is this near the top of the by the road, by the highway, or is this down below?
You know, I believe this particular property is toward the top.
Cool. Okay, great. Well, it seems like, you know, more farmers like him would be great. So thank you. I'll speak in support of this.
Board members, any other questions or concerns? If not, we will move to the vote. And I'll start with Randy Cabral.
Aye.
Aye from Randy. Russell Suji.
Aye.
Aye. Mary Alice Evans.
Aye.
James Gomes.
Aye.
Diane Lay.
Aye.
Vincent Mina.
Aye.
Ann Young.
Yes.
And Anya.
Aye.
Okay, the matter has passed.
Thank you.
Okay. Then we'll go on to the next communications from divisions and administration. Item C, Plant Industry Division, Plant Quarantine Branch.
Good afternoon, Chair, board members. My name is Jonathan Ho. I am the Inspection and Compliance Section Chief for the Plant Quarantine Branch. We have a request for preliminary review and approval of the petition from Ms. Carol Shmar from the Seahorse Hawaii Foundation to initiate administrative rulemaking and rule amendment to Chapter 4-71 Hawaii Administrative Rules to change the placement of mysid shrimp, Mysidopsis vaccia, from the list of restricted animals Part A to the list of restricted animals Part B for commercial aquaculture and live feed for seahorses. On December 27, 2022, we received a petition from Ms. Cozy Shmar to change the list placement, and her petition is included as Appendix A. In the proposed changes, the genus Mysidopsis is now Americomyces, but it's the same species, and the change, should it go through, is indicated there. This is a unique petition in that Ms. Koji Shmar is the president of the Seahorse Hawaii Foundation and the owner of Ocean Rider Seahorse Farm, and they're on the same property. So that's normally it's a single, I guess, entity for a single use. So she's actually proposing for two. So should this go through, they will be brought up before the board separately at the same time, but they're slightly different uses. So pursuant to 4-123 HAR, the board has 30 days to approve or deny a petition, or and if it does not approve or deny, there's in a 30-day time frame, rulemaking is automatically initiated. So on the board's October 11, 2022 meeting, the board delegated authority to the chairperson to deny petitions with a notification requirement of the denial at a future meeting. Ms. Koji Shmar was issued such a denial, and it was dated January 17, 2022. Any denial of a petition does not prevent the board from acting upon its own for any matter disclosed in a petition. And again, it's Plant Quarantine Branch's understanding that the board would like full advisory review prior to taking formal action. So prior petitions have been denied procedurally with the direction to go through review, and then the board will then make a final determination at the end of that review. That being said, the board can deny any petition without advice. So mysid shrimp's currently on the restricted A list, so it's only available for research by universities and government agencies, exhibition municipal zoos. Restricted placement on RB would give eligibility for government and private commercial use, and this is what Ms. Koji Shmar is requesting. She's requesting the change so that she can use it for example, conservation seahorse species for feed, and then for commercial seahorse production, feed for commercial seahorse production. Should the board act favorably, the request must go before the advisory committee on plants and animals prior to rulemaking, and at that time we will do the review with proposed permit conditions for approval before we do rulemaking, so we can kind of kill two birds with one stone. Part two is basically just the list of the changes. So basically we're just deleting all of the stuff on the restricted A list and basically adding a restricted B list, giving it eligibility. And again, our recommendation is denial procedurally, so that the board can get a full advisory review prior to making a final determination.
Okay, if there are any public comments?
I think Ms. Koji Shmar is available for comment as well. I think it might be Carol, if there are questions for her. I believe that's her.
I'd like to call up Carol. Please state your name and organization.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Carol Cozy Shmar. And first of all, thank you for considering our petition. I am the owner, along with my husband, Craig Shmar, of Ocean Rider and the Seahorse Hawaii Foundation. There are about 45 species of seahorses and 3 species of sea dragons. The dragons are found only in Southern Australia, and the government there gives 1 permit to 1 person once a year to take 1 gravid male out of the ocean. So those eggs that are on his tail will hatch into about 30 live animals, and they'll be sold to aquariums around the world like ours for about $8,000 to $10,000 each. Now, these animals only eat mysids, live mysids, Mysidopsis bahia. And where they're found in Australia, the plankton is like snow in the water. There's so much of it, the animal just turns his head and eats the food. So we've had sea dragons on our farm for about 20 years. And what we did is we trained them to eat opaiula, which is red shrimp from the volcanic ponds here. And the difference is that that shrimp has a different fatty acid profile, and it also goes to the bottom of the tank. So the animals have to learn to take it off the bottom. So after having these animals on the farm for so long, we've never had a breeding success. And we're starting to wonder, why is that? Like, what are we doing wrong? Well, it turns out that some of the other aquariums like Waikiki Aquarium in Monterey and Stupid Birch Aquarium have had success by loading the water full of this Mycetes bahia. So many that it's like snow in the water, just like in the wild where they come from. So we decided to do the same thing, but we weren't able to get a permit. So we realized that this food is essential to the breeding success of the dragons and many other exotic seahorses, including the ones that are found here in Hawaii. Additionally, we have found the mysids here in Hawaii in the waters, but they're not in very big numbers. So besides that, we have basically no risk of escape here in our facility. We have a very secure facility, and also we don't discharge our water into the ocean. It goes into small, like EPA registered pits where it turns into salt, basically.
Okay. Thank you, Carol.
Yes.
So we have a procedural question.
I have a question, Jonathan, because you don't have a recommendation, particularly in your list. And you did say that the chair has already sent a denial letter. Are you asking the board for another denial, or are you asking the board to submit the question of whether or not to move the Mysidopsis bahia from the restricted A to restricted B to the Advisory Committee on Plants and Animals?
Yeah, so the initial denial letter that was submitted basically is only issued to manage the 30 days. So basically we're telling her, we're denying it because we don't have 30 days, but we're gonna bring it back before the board. And then obviously the board is gonna make the decision. So the decision, I guess, procedurally to manage 30 days, we have sure a letter, and in the letter, it indicates that it's gonna come to board today. So at that point, now the board is gonna make that official determination of, do we want to automatically initiate rulemaking and change the list, or deny her petition with the idea that we want the full review. And then it's kind of like chicken before the egg, because if you don't move it, you can't get a permit. And
you know what I'm frankly not aware of, and I don't know if Deputy AG Jody Yee might have more information. But if the chair has already denied it, why then isn't the 30? Wouldn't the 30 days has been, that issue has been satisfied? Is that right?
correct.
Then why do you need a board denial at this time?
Well, so then this gets so the board can just go into rulemaking on its own.
Right, but what's a recommendation? The recommendation is the board do what?
Well, so the branch's recommendation is denial for full review, because that's what the board has historically wanted to see. But if the board feels strongly, you can go ahead and initiate rulemaking right now. There's nothing that stops you from that, right? Because the petition says you issue a petition, the board can initiate rulemaking. That's the board's authority. Historically, we've had this full review.
The board had historically said they wanted the Committee on Plants and Animals to see it first.
Right. So
but why did you need a denial in order to do that?
So again, I guess there's nothing. There's no standing procedure that requires it. I mean, so I guess maybe it's a cart before the horse kind of thing, and maybe we're bungling it a little, and maybe we should just do it one time and not do this.
So all you really want to do, is there a recommendation to send this request to the committee, to the Advisory Committee on Plants and Animals? Or are you saying no, just deny it and stop the whole process right now? In other words, the board could simply deny it.
Correct.
And say, don't send this any further. We already decided we don't want to move it.
That is not the recommendation.
Okay. Are you is the next step after whatever the decision is made, is the next step in your mind to move this matter to the Advisory Committee on Plants and Animals?
Correct.
Okay.
And that would be for a full review.
Yes. Okay. So we would work with Ms. Cozy Schmar. We'll have a submittal, which you would normally see with proposed permit conditions. And then you guys will then make the determination after you'll see everybody's comments.
Okay. I do not think you need another denial. what I think you need is a motion from the board to send this matter to the advisory committee on plants and animals.
Okay.
That's, I think, because the chair has already denied it.
Okay, no, that works. We can, that's not a problem.
We can take comments from the board and or you can take a motion.
I'll take comments from the board. Any hands up? Oh, Vincent has his hand up.
Thank you, Chair. Carol, thank you for your testimony. And, you know, I want to encourage everybody on the board here to go to their website. I did so, and I was blown away at the video that they done on their operation. Not only is it a really encouraging operation that can help keep these animals from being further endangered, but also, you know, the fact that her and her husband have bootstrapped this from, you know, just a passion they had. I can totally relate as to our operation. So when it goes for full review, my question to Jonathan is, what is that? Is that how slow of a process is that, number one, if it is being recommended to go to full? And second of all, if it's a long process, I mean, these guys got to eat, right? It's already been approved under an aquarium, under a Waikiki aquarium that they're not even taking the environmental steps that the Carroll folks guys are at their foundation. So I would like to see this fast tracked in whatever way possible, because in essence, if it's allowed in other areas that are raising these animals, why wouldn't it be okay to raise them there? So that's my 2 cents regarding trying to understand what's holding it up, and does a full review really need to happen?
So so I guess so 2 things. So the list placement defines organizations which are eligible for importation. So because this is on the restricted A list, the Waikiki Aquarium qualifies, and Ms. Cozy Schmart does not. So the list change would make it eligible for her to import. So obviously you need to change before she can do that. That's the first thing. In terms of expediting, the board could do the change by board order if the board so chooses to do so. I don't know if that's a different agenda item, because it's a change. Whether I guess the mode of action, I don't know if that's a noticed issue, but the board could do that.
Brian, could that happen? Could that happen today if we were to set up an agenda, a motion to that effect?
You know, could I ask if Jody Yee, who's the deputy AG on this, I'm trying to recall whether or not there's a requirement to submit these questions to the advisory committee, either in rule or statute. And frankly, I just don't remember.
150A 10 requires that all the advisory committee on plants and animals shall advise the department on, changes to rules, regulations, whatever concerning the importation, containment, introduction of animals, and plants and animals. So I mean, there is a requirement. It's going to have to go to P&A regardless. So so I guess the board could say we want to do a board order. We'll have to go to P&A and then bring it back, and board order can occur.
How does that make it any faster?
It'll get it on the list faster.
In other words, aren't the steps exactly the same?
They're a little bit different. You don't have the full Chapter 91 process. You don't have to do like there's basically a condensed public hearing component to do board order list changes. That's what it is. But the review, that you're not going to get the full review of the permit. So you could potentially get the list changed done quicker, but the review may not be. So it's kind of this weird, you're juggling all these things. But you could do it all one time. But if the board does want to do the board action, this would be similar to what was done with the mosquito. Like the mosquito was the most recent one. We did board action. So it would be like that. You'll have the placement. So it's really up to what the board would like to see happen.
Thank you, Paul Jody.
Jody?
I just want to add, in addition to what Jonathan said, I believe also you would skip subcommittee.
Okay.
I'm sorry, can I ask, Jody, can I ask you a question? Is that covered under the agenda item of request for preliminary approval of the petition? Is that consistent? Could we send it to the Plans and Advisory Committee and then consider the shortened version at the next meeting?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
But also it could get done today, Jody?
No, it would have to go through at least P&A.
Okay.
Oh my God.
And Young with a question, followed by Mary Alice.
Chair, can I ask for people to mute if they're not speaking because the sound is getting really bad? Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
If you're not muted, please mute. I think we got it. Okay. And Young, and then Mary Alice,
Yep.
and then Dr.
Thanks. Sorry, Chair, I have to step out for a couple of minutes. I may miss the vote on this, but just, my inclination would be to go for full review. And I think Jonathan confirmed this, but just to make sure, my inclination would also be to have the commercial interests and the, foundation interests permits come separately before the board. Was that
That's
my
correct.
understanding correct? Yeah. Okay. So I got to step out. Hopefully I'll make it back for the vote. Thanks.
Mary Alice.
Jonathan, when the Waikiki Aquarium, which is allowed to import Mysidopsis
My teacher.
the shrimp.
Yeah.
Was what kind of was there any due diligence that was required for that eligible agency or organization?
Yeah. So all agencies obviously have to come before the board to get approval to establish the permit conditions. And for animals on these higher level lists, always have site inspections done prior to permit issuance. And our understanding is my understanding of the aquarium, they filter and treat the water prior to discharge. So in my understanding, there's no records of release or anything like that. Based on, I guess, the initial information provided by Ms. Koji Shmar, it appears they're doing the same thing. And it's possible that they will be, it'll show that they have a facility that's adequate to do proper containment. And basically the list change is really the real impediment in terms of getting it done.
Can I follow up with a question? Sure. Is this species of shrimp ever been deemed harmful to indigenous Ojai?
Yeah, so Trenton and I were talking about this, and we were trying to kind of figure out why it was placed on the restricted A list back in the early 90s. Generally speaking, for I guess things that seem innocuous, it's because there is a relative that's close. There's a close relative native to Hawaii, and they don't want escape and then hybridization. But that's pure conjecture. I don't actually know if that is the reason why it's on the restricted area. I'm not aware of it being invasive.
That issue would have been discussed when Waikiki Aquarium got there.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. Trenton Yasui, invertebrate aquatic biologist specialist. Trenton Yasui, invertebrate aquatic biologist specialist, plant quarantine branch. So to answer your question, Mariana, when I think it was in 2016, Waikiki Aquarium requested to import American Wahoo. That request did actually go for full review by the board. So the subcommittee, committee, and the board actually reviewed that request, looked at security features, whatnot. As far as placement on restricted A list occurred well before that. But without knowing exactly what the risks were at the time, restricted A organisms are deemed high risk. So I can only assume that there are legitimate reasons for placing on them. From my experience, one of the potential risks are disease. In addition to invasiveness, which I don't think, I'm not an expert on the species, but there could be some disease risks present when importing species that are closer.
I appreciate the answer.
Thank you. Anya?
Thank you, Chair. So I think it's important for us to understand what was the reasons that the shrimp was put on the restricted animal list. And for that reason, I would support the full review so we can learn more about potential long-term effects. And because if something gets out of a bag, it's very difficult to bring it back in. So.
And Mr. Mina, yes, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I'd like to follow up, Chair. Thank you. Carol, do you have any experience? Are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Do you have any experience with why it was put on the restricted list? I mean, you folks have been doing this for how long now?
25 years. And I've been here working in Hawaii in the industry since 1984. So I worked with Dr. Brock and I worked with Domingo. So my feeling is it's just a random thing. Because if you look at the list of animals that are allowed to be imported for sales in pet stores, there's many plants and animals that are clearly invasive. And yet they're allowed to bring them in and sell them to people who aren't really responsible for what they're doing. So I feel strongly like I'm being discriminated against. We are super secure here. We have better security than Waikiki Aquarium. And if Waikiki Aquarium has been bringing those in since 2016, they've been released and they're not invasive. I mean, I know they're discharged because I work there, it goes straight out into the water. We don't do that here. I just think it's somebody just made a random list and they didn't realize that that animal was going to become so important today, 40 years later for aquaculture. I mean, it's a really critical animal. It can allow us to breed marine ornamentals, sea dragons, more seahorses. I mean, it is today's magic.
And Carol, you spoke about a fatty acid material profile is different with the red shrimp that hang out the bottom. As to how is it different?
The red shrimp has very high levels of EPA and DHA, whereas the mysid shrimp has low EPA, but high DHA. And that work was done by Dr. Harry Ako at University of Hawaii.
And so the high EPA would be for longevity and health of the seahorse. And
it's more for female reproduction rather than male. So we think we have an imbalance in the fatty acid profile. I mean, it's been proven by Stephen Birch Aquarium, Waikiki Aquarium, and Monterey Bay. They all just dumping the mysids into the water and they're getting breeding.
So the thing that I'm concerned about, Chair, is, I mean, if you go to their website, like I said, I went to the website, you see the video and the amount of investment they have into this operation and the effect it's having on people that go there to visit and you have a firsthand experience with this. I mean, I don't want to see this operation in jeopardy in any way, especially because of the responsible steps they've taken along the way to grow this operation and foundation. So that's why I'm just trying to get a clear message as to what is the critical path that needs to be taken in support of getting this off of the restricted list, or at least evaluating it to get it off the restricted list, because in essence, this is an operation, you know, that is making sense. And on that note, Chair, I know in the past we've done meetings on outer islands and we've traveled to operations. If we do a meeting in Kona, I'd sure like to go visit this place.
Okay, noted.
Sure.
Randy?
Trenton, you said they did a full review with Waikiki Aquarium for this particular species. So you suspect that the outcome of this review would be different than what you had back then?
I suspect it would be similar. I've also been to the Seahorse farm as well, a couple of occasions. So, you know, I'm pretty familiar with it. I agree with Vincent that the facility is a good facility from my experience. But I'm not making any kind of a determination about that. We're just presenting what the current process is. You know, the experts, our technical advisors, given the opportunity to review, may find some risks that need to be addressed.
And just a follow-up question, maybe Carol, it says here that, you know, talks about pet trade in one part, and then on the back it said, do not sell the dragons or conservation seahorses species to the public.
Yeah.
Could you explain that?
Yes, that's correct. So what we do here is we have one species of seahorses called Hippocampus erectus, and that is the only animal that we sell as a pet to the pet trade. The conservation species are the dragons and the other exotic seahorse species. And those we just hold here for display at our aquarium, and we trade them with other aquariums like Waikiki and Stephen Birch in Monterey.
Okay, and then the ones you sell for the pet trade, what are they fed?
They're fed a frozen shrimp, but they will eat it. They're very different animals. Even though they're in the same genus, they're extremely different in how they eat.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So we have Vincent and Anya with hands up. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, Anya.
Yes, so I have a follow-up question. So Carol, thank you for providing more information. I did look at your website and it's definitely impressing. The question that I have is a bigger impact of, and that's maybe related to the rest of the board, or if somebody can clarify that for me, the bigger impact of moving this shrink from the part A to part B. Would that mean that anybody who is working in commercial aquaculture would be able to import the shrimp? And because my concern is that I know that Carol and her husband are taking all the precautions to make sure that there is that shrimp doesn't get out, but does moving it from part A to part B opens the door for everyone else, or would they have to apply for some specific permits?
So from A to B would make mysid shrimp eligible for other commercial ventures. The permit conditions that will be drafted and presented to the board will be based off of Ms. Koji Schmar's particular use. So should the board approve that, administratively, the branch could issue permits for the same use for the same species. So depending on future applicants, if they're doing a similar use, well, actually, I think for all intents and purposes, the same use, we could issue permits administratively. If they were to use this particular species for a different use, they would go through the process to have it reviewed prior to the board, making that final determination to approve or disapprove and then allow importation.
Thank you very much for clarification.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Oh, Diane Lane.
Thank you, Chair. I guess, given that we don't know why the species was put on the restricted A list, and there's no necessarily any justification that to rush the process, my preference would be to go through the full review. We've been timely thus far with the response from the department, having received the communication or the petition from Seahorse Hawaii Foundation in late December. So I think if we move forward with this, we'll get the job done and we'll do our full review and make a decision based on that. So thank you.
Can I just clarify something, Chair? So the requested is for preliminary review for a list placement or list change. So there's two things that need to occur in order for this college market import. So it's a list change that qualifies, but secondly, it would be the import request. So the board would still have to review the import request.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. In fact, council mentioned the same thing. This request is not simply, but the request is for a preliminary review and approval from the petition, and then after that, the review process will take place. Based on that, any other questions? Okay, Vincent.
You're muted, Vincent.
You're muted, Vincent.
Vincent,
Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Jonathan, one more question for you folks.
Sure.
So how long does that process take?
So what we'll do is we'll work with Ms. Koji Schmar to get a request. We'll work with her to get all the information packaged for review. From the a completed submittal back to the board, 3 months, and then you're going to initiate rulemaking, and then obviously that's subject to small business, governor, and all that stuff. So then that's kind of up in the air in terms of the governor's workload and timeline.
And it's my understanding that these shrimp are already in these waters, in our waters. Carol, is that correct?
I've seen them here, yes.
That's
what's mine. I don't quite get why we're restricting something that didn't have any, because I heard you earlier, Jonathan, saying, well, I assume the reason was this, and Eric was saying, well, I think it wasn't, it's not like in documentation. This is why it was restricted. Bang, it's a threat to our, of anybody who's concerned about threats to the ecosystem. It's me. So I'm just wondering, where is the basis for this restriction? 3 months. And these animals are what, Carol, from what I understand from the research I've done, $10,000 to get a pregnant?
Yes, yes. And I have about 7 waiting to come in that we've already paid for that I can't get in until we can get the food.
Yeah, see,
it's super discouraging.
Yeah, I hear you. And it's discouraging to me when I see the operation. That's why I was encouraging everybody to go see your video, because in essence, look, I'm not looking to, Carol's not my friend. I've never met her, I'm not married to her. It's a thing where I just really would like to see this be.
Cash the check, Vince.
I tell you, I'm not getting paid under the table, anything. No, truly, I guess because what pushes my buttons is when I see a family taking such efforts as bootstrapping something because of their passion, especially in agriculture, and running up against bureaucratic gobbledygook that may not really have a basis for the gobbledygook. I just, it's just hard for me to not push this in a way that says, hey, let's 3 months down the road, and then that's, not really locked in cement, is it, Jonathan?
We could probably, I'd have to look, but maybe, I'm sure we could do something. Yeah,
Probably 3 months. We should realistically.
well, okay, so 3 months from the time that she provides. So for example, if Ms. Koji Shmar doesn't provide us anything, nothing for you to review. I don't believe that she will be that way. I'm sure she will she'll work with Trenton to get us something, obviously, and then we'll get it to the review. At that time, the board will have, obviously the proposed list change and proposed permit conditions for review. That doesn't change the placement. At that time, I guess the only other thing that could be done is that second time we could propose the board order process that might speed it up a little. Brian give me a funky face, but
But at this time, the motion is to request for preliminary review.
right, because the board can't change the law, right? And then the public process has to occur.
Whether or not it takes.
Right, yeah, that's unfortunate. I don't necessarily have, one way or the other, but we have to, we're the law enforcement guys, so we kind of got to follow the law.
Sorry, can I ask one question?
Go ahead.
So on this petition, and this is words coming from Trenton, I believe, it says Mysidopsis bahia is currently on the RA list and is available for research by universities and government agencies, exhibition in municipal zoos, and government-affiliated aquariums and other institutions for medical and scientific purposes as determined by the board. Doesn't that mean that the board can decide right now that we can have the same privilege at Waikiki Aquarium because we are doing science?
That's not the motion in front of the board right now. The motion is to request for a preliminary review and approval of the petition from you.
Well, my petition was a little bit different.
Is that a motion that we put forward, Chair?
I'm going to ask for more comments. I see Anya's hand up.
Yeah, sorry, I just have one quick question for Carol. Why going through the review process that, okay, let me say take 3 to 6 months, I'm not sure. Why the delay in that would affect your operation so much?
Well, because we can't bring the animals in from Australia until we have a permit to get the food. So they're just waiting over there and they might die. They might not be available again.
Oh,
I mean,
okay, thank you. I understand now, thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
Yes, Chair. Like I mentioned earlier, can that motion be brought forward after we vote on this motion that's on the table?
No,
No.
not yet.
No motion.
The motion is to hear the request.
so when I petitioned Trenton for this petition, I asked him if I could just be the institution, get approval for our institution, or if that didn't work, to ask for movement from the RA to the RB list. So he decided to go for the RB list. That wasn't my decision.
So I think maybe for some clarification with regard to that. So our understanding is an institution is something that's beyond a person, a university.
I think council has some information to interject.
So I think that what we're restricted on to discuss today is restricted by the agenda. So I think you can only discuss the matter on the agenda. Next month, if something else comes up, and there's a different agenda item, you can discuss that. But currently, it's the preliminary review and approval of the petition. And so it's a preliminary review and approval. So this is going to send it off to the Committee on Plants and Animals. If there's something to be done to make it faster, I think that would have to be taken up at the next meeting, because the current matter before you is what we have noticed the public that we're talking about. So if we were going to approve it, for example, as a restricted A permit, I think that's not currently covered under the agenda.
Okay, I see some hands up. Russell?
Sorry, Carol, if you answered this earlier, but my question was about the animals, the seahorses. I know you've brought them into Nelha for a number of years now. So what has changed in their diet or what you want to feed them from before to currently?
Well,
And the reason for that, and the reason for that.
with the sea dragons, they eat, their natural food is mysids, and it's in the water column, so they eat in the water column. With the red shrimp, the shrimp goes to the bottom of the tank and have to learn to take the food off the bottom. So they don't really do it very well, but they will do it and they will survive, but they won't breed. If you put the mysids in the water column for the animals to eat, they eat it and they breed. And that's been proven by Waikiki Aquarium just recently.
Okay. Okay. So if you feed them like how you were doing it previously, at least they will survive then, at least during the interim. Is that right?
Well, the leafy dragons will survive, but the weedy dragons can't eat the red shrimp because it's too big. So there's two different types of dragons. And the leafy dragon wasn't available this last year because of COVID and problems in Australia. So now we only have the weedy dragons, and the weedy dragons can't eat the red shrimp. It's just too big for their mouth.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Russell Suji, is that
Yes.
okay?
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions from the board? Okay. So
Please repeat the motion. Please repeat the motion.
the motion was to approve the request. The motion was.
They don't have a motion. Yeah, we don't have a motion yet.
Okay. All right, sorry about that. Do I have a motion to approve the request?
The request of,
Well, the agenda item, I think. So it's the motion for preliminary review and approval of the petition. If you look at the agenda,
That is the motion.
the result of this will send it to the Committee on Plants and Animals.
Okay.
So I've made the motion.
Second.
And it's been seconded.
Okay, so the motion was made by Mary Alice, seconded by Mr. Gomes. Let's take a vote. Randy Cabral.
Aye.
Aye. Mary Alice Evans.
Aye.
James Gomes.
Aye.
Diane Lay.
Aye.
Vincent Mina.
fast tracked aye.
Okay. And Young? Not here. He did have to step away. And Dr. Anya.
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms.
Russell.
Russell. Aye.
Yeah,
And then
aye.
back to Russell.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Russell.
Aye.
So the motion is passed. Okay. Thank you. Any old, next on the agenda is old business? Any?
No, it's not on the agenda. There's no other matter.
No other
That's it.
matters for the board today. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
That's from Mr. Gomes. Second from Mr. Cabral. We'll see you February 28th at 9 a.m.
Oh, so
Thank
let's-
you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everybody.
Chair.
Is that a
Thank you.
Tuesday? Oh, boy.
Travel